Alright, this video can technically be considered illegal, but I don't care. So the third SpongeBob movie was supposed to be released like all the way back in May of this year. But because of unforeseeable events, its new date was thrown around so many times Paramount said fuck it, just put it on Netflix. So now everyone's finally been given the chance to watch the movie. Except for America. That's not a joke. We're literally the only country in the world that doesn't have access to it on any streaming platform. But that didn't stop me. You see, I have a friend who lives in Japan, by the way, so it's perfectly fine. And he got me a copy of the movie in a very fair and legal way. And after watching it 7 times in the span of 2 days, my final verdict is pretty alright. Now, despite the fact that I'm a film student, and yes, you did hear that right, I've yet to develop the sense that I'm too good for animated films. It's coming, don't worry, it's coming. However, I don't know if this is just me, but animated movies recently have been kinda just like Scoob, Onward, Trolls, Mulan, wait, why is this here? That's not saying they've all been like that, but in terms of theatrical releases, they've been kind of lacking. SpongeBob, on the other hand, was like, hey, how about we don't do that? It's very clear there was a lot of passion put into this film. For starters, even though SpongeBob had a pretty rocky transition into 3D, the world adapts itself incredibly well to this new art direction. The characters are very expressive and fluid, the environments are beautifully lush with their detail and colors, everything just looks fucking delicious, alright? I know that serves no merit at all, but trust me, when you watch this, you'll think, damn, that looks pretty yummy. Next is the writing. Now, I've never been the type of dude to lol while watching a movie, even when I find something funny. Granted, most of my humor derives from watching public freakout videos, so I've grown quite an exquisite taste. But I will say, this movie is pretty funny. The humor feels very natural, and on the occasion where a joke doesn't land, the film doesn't dwell on it and jumps into the next idea. There were many times I exhaled oxygen from my nose and smirked. That says a lot about a show that's older than 85% of the people who watch YouTube. Finally, and I think we can all agree this is the most important part, the film has not one, but 2 Weezer songs. Clearly, we live in the best timeline. With that said, there seemed to be one thing that held this movie back from being even better than it was: corporate meddling. As I just said, there was an obvious amount of passion that went into this film, but there were also parts that seemed forced in because of SpongeBob's future. This, of course, is in reference to the Camp Coral tie-in. Now, it's hard to talk about this show without acknowledging the controversy surrounding it. How SpongeBob's creator, Stephen Hillenburg, was very adamant about not making a spin-off, but then one being announced not too long after his death in 2018. Obviously, there's some shady shit going on, but after the animation community had a fucking meltdown over the show, it became kind of obnoxious to talk about. So yes, this movie is meant to advertise Camp Coral. Is that completely a bad thing? No, but it definitely hinders its quality a bit. Most notably is how it rewrites the SpongeBob canon and changes how all the characters met. Like, remember Tea at the Tree Dome, the episode where SpongeBob and Sandy met for the first time? No you don't, because they met at summer camp, you dumbass. Although it's upsetting the movie retconned a bunch of lore, it's important to remember that SpongeBob's been doing that for over a decade at this point. Like, how many times has the Flying Dutchman appeared and everyone acts like it's their first time meeting him? Probably a lot. Continuity has barely ever meant anything for SpongeBob, but it feels a little more cruel now that they're basically redoing everything. Also, despite being a tie-in, it's barely given any screen time at all, as it's only ever mentioned in incredibly brief flashbacks during the last 15 minutes. This may sound like a good thing as the movie can focus more on its own story, but when those moments come up, they feel incredibly out of place and take away from the pacing. It's like a combination of infomercials and Family Guy cutaways. It has little bearing on the plot, but still exists to sell you something. And it's made even worse because if you were to take out the Camp Coral scenes, the only thing that would change are the new ways the characters meet. But we already know how they originally met, so why not just retell the stories instead of the movie going out of its way to create new ones? This isn't even something I can get mad at the writers for, because it's obvious this was done by Viacom's demand to advertise the show. And for as much as I'd love to give an encouraging speech about how these soulless, money-hungry corporations corporations shouldn't fuck with artistic freedoms, they're the ones who have all the money. So sometimes you just gotta swallow your pride and say, fine, I'll plug the show. But despite all that, the movie was still pretty good. I don't know how I'd compare it to the first two, cause nostalgia would probably fuck with my judgment. Watch the movies for yourself and formulate your own opinions instead of having some rando on the internet tell you what to think. That's it, bye bye.